Today I want to show you Skylum's brand new Luminar AI and how it works with full panoramic skies from the skylibrary.com. So first things first, we're going to be working with two different skies from the skylibrary.com. We're going to be working with spring late morning 003 and summer evening 15. Now there's several different ways you can find these skies. I would recommend just go into the search, type in summer evening, go to page 4 and you'll find summer evening 15 right here along with the description. And you can go back to the search and search spring morning. And we're going to be using spring late morning 003. Be sure to use the code SkyLibrary at checkout and you'll get $5 off. So full disclosure, Luminar AI is a little slow. This is the first version of Luminar AI itself, so just keep that in mind. If you're editing straight from Lightroom and you go into right click, edit in Luminar AI, it's going to take a while to load these. If you want to move a little bit faster, what you can do is export these as full resolution JPEGs and open them all in Luminar AI's standalone program versus the plugin, and it does run a lot faster going that way. However, you don't have that seamless Lightroom integration, so it's going to run a little bit slower. So just for the sake of speed, we're going to go ahead and edit these in Luminar AI's standalone application versus the plugin. But first I'll show you what we're going to be dealing with. We have 4 architectural images. 2 were taken at twilight at different angles, 2 were taken in the morning at different angles. This way I can show you the full power of using Sky Library skies in Luminar AI, or even Photoshop for that matter. We're going to be dealing with 4 architectural images and 4 landscape images. So one thing I want to say before I get too far into it is give them a break in terms of the slowness. I mean, it's a brand new application. In fact, as I'm recording this video, I just got a notification that there's an update available for the Luminar plugin. I'm guessing they're going to be addressing some of those speed issues. So by the time you watch this, the speed may not be a problem. But in the meantime, I'm going to be editing in here. All right, so we'll go ahead and get started. Again, we're going to start with some architecture images because I am an architecture photographer. So let's start with this one. Now these are going to be a couple twilight images. We're going to start with the twilight ones first. And like I already told you about the skies we're going to be using, so I'm going to go ahead and load those. So I already have my folder loaded. Well, the way you do this is you just hit the plus sign. You can add folder and select the folder that you have images that you exported to that you want to load into Luminar. And then you just come over to the edit panel and you can go down to sky and you can get started here. So if you click on sky, you're going to go to sky selection. Luminar already has preloaded skies. That's fine. If you want to add your own from the Sky Library or anywhere else, you can go down here, just hit the plus sign, find it within your Finder or your folder structure, and go ahead and add it. Right now, we're going to go ahead and start with our twilight sky. And you have some panels here that you can mess with, obviously. So we're going to start with orientation. This is where you can adjust the horizontal offset. So as you can see, you can move it left to right. And the one thing I'm noticing so far is that as you get closer to the edges, it starts to zoom in a little bit, like as you can see there, which is totally fine because you can you can adjust the vertical offset still. But that's something I hope they address in the future. So what we want to do here is again find our shadows. Now one thing I want to point out right off the bat is that as you'll notice, as I'm moving this around, the lighting in the foreground is changing, which is something that's noteworthy about Luminar that does a really good job. Now, Photoshop has that as well, but I think Luminar does a little bit of a better job at this point. Now, we just want to find the right placement for the sky. It was pretty soft as it was, so we can disable this temporarily so we can kind of get a better idea as to where the light was. I happen to know that the sun had already set. It was kind of back into the right of me. So we kind of want to put the sun in the same exact spot with this. We'll turn this back on. And we're going to go ahead and let's find the sun first. It's right here. So we're just going to push this back to the right a little bit because that's where the sun would have been in the actual image. And that's probably good right there. Now I don't want this to be it's pretty strong right now and I don't really want that. In fact, I don't really like the positioning all that much. I'm going to adjust the vertical offset here. Blend the horizon a little bit more. I'll try like right here. And then we'll mess with the colors a little bit later. So mask refinement. This is where you can kind of, these are just some basic correction sliders. If you're noticing anything, any weird things, just mess around with these. I'm not going to go into details of what these do because, to be honest with you, I actually don't know. You just have to mess around with them to get the look you want. Scene relighting, you can do relight strength, and this is just, it's pretty self-explanatory. If you want it to relight your scene a lot, you do this. You just mess around with these, mess around with the saturation. If there's a human in there, you can adjust the lighting for that. I'm still seeing a little bit of a weird haloing right here, and I don't really care for that too much, so we're going to move this over just a little bit more. I think that's good right there. Reflection, we don't really have much of reflection. There is a lake back here, but you really can't see it. So we're not going to mess with that much. However, you can see how it is kind of affecting the foreground lighting here. So we're going to go ahead and take that out now because we don't have any reflection that we're really dealing with. And then we're finally at the sky adjustments. This is where we're going to mess with things a little bit. We can add a little bit of haze just to kind of soften the sky up a little bit. I'm going to make this a lot brighter because, again, it's a little too harsh for my liking for where the sky is placed. This is a little bit better. This is probably a little bit more accurate to what would actually be happening. And I'm actually going to bring the sky, the horizon, a little bit further over because, as I mentioned, the sun is behind me to the right. So this feels a lot better in terms of location. So we'll go ahead and call that good. Now we'll switch around to the other side of the house, and we're going to add the same exact sky. And this actually landed almost exactly where I wanted it. Didn't plan that at all. So horizontal offset, we're going to find the sun, which is back there, exactly where it would have been. And we're going to go ahead and mess with the vertical a little bit and increase the size of this. And we're just going to keep kind of playing with this until it gets in the right spot. I think that's good. It is a little dark for what I want, so we'll brighten it up a little bit. Add a little bit of haze just to soften it up. And to be honest with you, I'm pretty good with this. We don't really need to do a whole lot else. So we'll turn this off just so you can kind of see the difference. You can see it kind of relights the trees a little bit, foreground a little bit. This is a little cooler right here. This warms it up a bit here. So it does a really, really good job. Now we'll mess with the daytime images of this. So same exact house. We'll go ahead and select our spring late morning 003. Let's go ahead and mess with the horizontal offset to see if we can find that sun. It looks like it's up in the sky up here a little bit. And as you can tell from the, it might be kind of hard to tell, but you can kind of see where the shadows are falling. In this case, the sun is kind of up here. If you look at some of the shadows, you can see they're falling this way. So the sun is kind of up here, so we want to move the sun to be in the same exact location. And probably right there. Right there feels good. Okay. And we're going to go ahead and mess with the reflection on this one because we have some glass. It's not going to do too much because reflections usually actually really more intended for water, but we can still mess with it here a little bit. Overall, I think we're fine here. I don't need to really add much else. Now we'll go to the other side of the house and we'll add the same sky. Or we could do a different sky. It doesn't matter. This is just the one we were working with. Let's just, out of curiosity, pull another sky in here. This actually is a different time of day, so we probably could pull this one in. This sky here that I'm messing with is summer afternoon 19, if you're curious. But let's just let's see. The shadows or the sun is obviously over here. This was taken in the late afternoon, maybe 2 hours before sunset. Sun is way up here. You can see the harsh shadows or the nice shadows here casting that way. So let's maybe move our sun over there. You can see a little sun flare. Maybe right there. This is actually probably a more appropriate sky for this one anyway, just because of the time of day. That feels good. Let's go ahead and brighten that thing up a bit. We can add some warmth, but I think that kind of warms up the whole thing too much. So I'll just bring the warmth down a little bit, add a little bit of haze. Don't really need a reflection in there. It doesn't really do anything. Let's see what relighting it does. Doesn't do a whole lot. We'll bring the relighting down. yeah, I think this looks really good. So I'm not going to do much else to it. So as you can see, that's how you would apply the Sky Library skies to architecture. And again, the main reason I wanted to show you this in Luminar AI is you can finally adjust the horizontal offset. Let's go ahead and move on to some landscape photos. This is a photo I took in Ireland. It's ladies' view. This is in Killarney National Park. And we're going to go ahead and this is probably going to be a better, twilight image because of the gloominess. But just for fun, we'll go ahead and select our spring sky just to see what it does. And obviously, we don't want the foreground showing, so we need to bring that down a little bit. So you can see this obviously doesn't really match the scene too well. And this is one of the problems that a lot of photographers face, is that they use the wrong skies for the scenes. This just doesn't make sense. This is more appropriate for like a twilight kind of sky. So we'll go ahead and load one of those. And I didn't even have to do much. This already looks pretty good. Obviously, we want to mess with it a little bit more. Now, as you can see here, I'm adjusting this reflection slider, and you can see how it's introducing color into the water here, which is really great. We're going to mess with the relighting a little bit because we want it to match. We want the foreground to match the sky a little bit better, and I think this is doing a really good job. Mess with the saturation. There's no humans in here, so this doesn't matter. I actually like where the sun is at right there, but just out of curiosity, let's just see what happens if I move it. And then watch the reflection in the water. Isn't that neat? So, I mean, we could have our sun right there, but you can see it introduces a little bit of, we don't want that. And I know that, let's see, if we pull it up, it's going to start to introduce, the foreground a little bit. And we don't want that. So we want it to be kind of hidden, probably behind this mountain. Like, I think this is a pretty good spot wherever we started at. Yeah, let's just keep it here. Now, I think that we could probably mess with the warmth a little bit. It's kind of a cooler day. Probably bring this down. But I think one of the things, and this is what one of the nice things about Luminar, is that you can actually edit the foreground a little bit. So if we go back up here, and I want to go to, I don't want to go to enhance, I want to go to color. No, I don't want to go to color either. I want to go to lights. There we go. These panels will only adjust, they won't adjust your sky, they'll adjust your actual image. So I can go ahead and kind of match the color a little bit more to reflect the scene, so I can warm it up a little bit. And as you can see, that kind of makes it a little bit more realistic to the sky that's happening. So I actually really like that. And we're going to go ahead and come back down to the sky, and I think I'm going to add a little bit of haze to this. Oh, it's a little too much. Try warming it up just a little bit. So yeah, I mean, I think this looks kind of neat. And going back to what it looked like before without the sky, this is the original sky. And as you can see, it does a really good job of just replacing the entire sky, even though there's clouds here. I think that looks really good. So there's that. This one, same thing. I'm not going to do a lot of editing on this one. This is also in Killarney National Park. We'll go ahead and select our sky. I just wanted to show you what editing a landscape photo would look like with the Sky Library skies. Whoops, I'm in the wrong spot. Again, we're sticking with the same skies just so I'm not jumping around too much. I mean, right off the bat, that looks pretty good, and I don't even have to do anything. Obviously we want to mess with it a little bit. We'll go ahead and maybe mess with the foreground a little bit. I always go to the wrong spot. I mean, that looks really good. I'm not a landscape photographer, but it looks pretty good and it looks pretty natural. Even the haze kind of blends in a little bit up here. I think that's just really neat. Back here looks really nice. Obviously, we've got some of my foreground peeking through, so I can Photoshop that out, or I can bring my offset down a little bit. Let's see what that looks like. That looks fine. I'm happy with that. It actually looks a little better, in my opinion. So yeah, that's kind of neat. We got a couple more we'll just mess with really quick. Again, I'm not a landscape photographer, so I'm not trying to impress you with my skills or anything. Here's an older sky that I loaded. Let's just see what this looks like. I just want to show you what a lot of reflection looks like. This sky does not match at all, but we're just going to mess with it a little bit just for the sake of showing you reflection. Let's go ahead and add a lot of reflection there. I mean, that reflection is pretty solid, you have to admit. Let's go and make this a little bit brighter. It's not really blending all that well in with this, so let's go ahead and let's bring this down actually, because we've got some oh, I see. This guy has I've got some trees in this sky. Yeah, I mean, so that looks really good, as you can kind of see. Let's go to this one. Here's one last one we'll mess with. I just want to show you another panoramic. This is actually a little soft. I took this a long time ago. This is in San Pedro, California. We'll try a sunset sky here. Where's my sun? Right there. So we'll just match up the sun with where it's at. Bada boom, bada bing. I don't even have to do anything really here. We'll increase the reflection amount. Where is... No, that's perfect. I don't even have to do anything else. It looks completely natural. It looks like it should have been there in the first place, if I do say so myself. So yeah, don't even have to add anything else to that. In fact, that's kind of a banger image. So hopefully you guys found this interesting. Again, check out theskylibrary.com. Use the code SKYLIBRARY for $5 off. And be sure to check out Luminar AI. You can download it using the link below in the description. It will help me out. Let me know what you think in the comments, and also tag me on Instagram at Jordan Powers without the vowels so I can check out your work.